The morning of October 6th dawned under a sky the color of bruised plums, mirroring the ominous atmosphere that had descended upon Emmerdale. The village, usually a tableau of rural tranquility, now hummed with an almost palpable tension, a silent promise of the storms yet to break. Every glance held a question, every hushed conversation a potential threat. The carefully maintained facades of normality were crumbling, exposing raw nerves and festering wounds. April, shivering not just from the cold but from a volatile mix of defiance and fear, listened intently as Chloe Harris spun a web of alluring possibilities. Chloe, a master manipulator, painted a picture of freedom and retribution, skillfully preying on April's deep-seated feelings of abandonment and injustice. "Your parents, the great Rona and Marlon," Chloe sneered, "they'll only ever see you as their little problem, their disappointment. But I see a girl who's got fire. A girl who's sick of being told what to do." April, her judgment clouded by hurt, found herself nodding. "They just don't understand," she whispered, her voice raw. "They care more about their perfect careers than they do about me. They think I'm just acting out, but I'm not. I'm drowning." Chloe's eyes gleamed. "Exactly. So, what are you gonna do? Drown, or fight back? I know a place, just outside the village, an old abandoned cottage. No one goes there. You could stay there, show them you're serious. Make them sweat. And who knows," she added, her voice dropping conspiratorially, "maybe we can even find a way to make them pay attention, really pay attention, to what you need." A flicker of unease crossed April's face, but the desperate need for control, for validation, outweighed her caution. "Pay attention how?" she asked, her voice barely audible. Chloe merely smiled, a predatory glint in her eyes. "Let's just say, sometimes a little persuasion is needed. A little bit of trouble that points them right back to you. Something that makes them realize how much they need you, how much they've overlooked you." April, teetering on the edge of a dangerous decision, felt a surge of adrenaline. This was it. This was her chance to make them feel something, to shake them out of their complacent lives. As Chloe led her away, deeper into the woods, April clutched her small bag, oblivious to the far greater danger she was willingly walking into. The abandoned cottage wasn't just a hideout, it was a trap, and Chloe Harris, far from being an ally, was merely a pawn in a much larger, more sinister game. Mary, her heart heavy with dread, made a beeline for home farm. She knew the conversation with Dennis was just the beginning. The rumor mill in Emmerdale was notoriously efficient and merciless. She burst through the door, her face pale. "Gabby, Vinny, we need to talk now." Her urgency startled them both, interrupting their tense silence. "What is it, Mary?" Gabby asked, her voice sharp with apprehension. "It's Dennis," Mary began, her voice low and urgent. "He saw Vinny at the old mill weeks ago. With another man. And he connected it to Cammie's attack. The whole village is going to know, if they don't already." The words hung in the air like a death knell. Gabby gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Vinny's face drained of all color, his eyes wide with horror. He had tried so desperately to protect Gabby, to shield their marriage from his own painful truth, and now it was all crumbling, not just within their four walls, but publicly, for all of Emmerdale to dissect and judge. Just then, a sharp knock echoed through the house. Before anyone could react, the door swung open, revealing a familiar, smug face, Nicola King. Her eyes, usually sparkling with mischief, now held a calculating gleam. Well, Nicola purred, her gaze sweeping over the trio, lingering on Vinny. "Looks like I've arrived just in time for the main event. Heard some rather interesting whispers down at the cafe. Something about a certain husband, a certain mill, and a certain other man?" Her words, delivered with chilling precision, were like daggers. Gabby stared at Vinny, her earlier hurt now compounded by public humiliation. "You lied to me," she choked out, her voice barely above a whisper. "You made me look like an absolute fool." Vinny, caught in the crossfire of Mary's warning and Nicola's malicious confirmation, felt his world collapse. He had wanted to confess, to be honest with Gabby, but the fear of this exact moment had paralyzed him. Now, his deepest, most shameful secret was laid bare, not just for his wife, but for the most notorious gossipmonger in the village. The whispers had found their voice, and Emmerdale was about to erupt. At the paint shop, Charity's patience wore thin as Mackenzie continued to deflect her concerns. His forced cheerfulness, the way he avoided eye contact, spoke volumes. "Mac," she said, her voice laced with an uncharacteristic sharpness, "I'm not asking you to climb Everest, I'm asking you to admit you're struggling. We're having a baby, for God's sake. I need to know you're okay, that we're okay." Mackenzie, feeling the pressure mount, snapped. "Why can't you just drop it, Charity? I said I'm fine. Maybe I just don't want to go out. Maybe I'm just tired of your constant nagging." His words, born of fear and frustration, hung in the air, a stark contrast to their usual playful banter. Charity recoiled, hurt by his unexpected outburst. "My nagging? I'm worried about you, you idiot. You're not yourself. You're hiding something." Just as their argument intensified, a loud, crashing sound erupted from the back of the shop. A shelf of paint cans had toppled over, sending a cascade of colorful liquid across the floor. The sudden noise, the chaos, was a catalyst for Mackenzie. His eyes widened, His breathing became shallow, and a look of sheer terror contorted his face. He stumbled backward, knocking over a display, his hands flying to his head as if to block out the cacophony. "No! Get away!" he yelled, his voice raw with a fear that Charity had never witnessed. He dropped to his knees, trembling violently, a full-blown panic attack seizing him. Charity, shocked into silence, watched him, her anger instantly replaced by overwhelming concern. This was far more than just being tired. This was trauma, raw and untamed. The noise, the sudden disruption, had clearly triggered something deep within him. As other customers stared, Charity rushed to his side, pulling him into her arms, trying to shield him from the curious glances. "Mac, what is it? What's wrong?" she whispered, stroking his hair, her own heart pounding. But Mackenzie was beyond words, trapped in a terrifying loop of his own making, a prisoner of an invisible enemy. His long-buried fears had finally erupted, threatening to shatter their future just as they were about to embark on their greatest adventure. Back at the Dingle household, Rona was a whirlwind of frantic energy. The silence of April's absence was unbearable, each tick of the clock amplifying her fear. She can't just disappear, Marlon. Not again. What if she's with those awful people again? What if she's done something stupid? Marlon tried to calm her, making frantic phone calls to April's friends, the school, anyone who might have seen her. But all leads were dead ends. Just then, the phone rang, startling them both. Rona snatched it, her hand shaking. It was Gary Barlow, the social worker. His voice, usually calm and measured, held a note of serious concern. "Rona, I've just received some disturbing information. A tip-off. Someone reported seeing April with Chloe Harris, near the old mill cottage. And there were whispers about April being involved with some questionable activities. Drugs, Rona. And worse." Rona's blood ran cold. Chloe Harris. The name sent shivers down her spine. Chloe was trouble, notorious for her bad influence and dangerous connections. "No," Rona whispered, her voice barely audible. "No, not April. She wouldn't." But a part of her, the part that had seen April's raw pain and desperate defiance, knew it was a terrifying possibility. "What do you mean, worse?" she demanded, her voice rising. Gary hesitated. "Rona, I can't go into specifics, but the information suggests April might be in serious danger. You need to find her, immediately. I'm on my way, but I've also contacted the police. This is escalating beyond what social services can handle alone." The news hit Rona like a physical blow. Police involvement. This wasn't just a runaway teenager, this was a crisis. Marlon, overhearing the conversation, grabbed his coat, his face grim. "The old mill cottage? Let's go. We're not waiting for the police. We're her parents, we'll find her." As they rushed out, a chilling thought struck Rona. If April was with Chloe, and Chloe was involved in questionable activities, what exactly had April gotten herself into? The image of Leo, barely conscious, flashed before her eyes again. Had April's recklessness, fueled by her pain, now placed her in a truly life-threatening situation? The fear that clawed at Rona's heart was unlike anything she had ever felt, a primal terror for her child's safety. April, led by Chloe, arrived at the dilapidated mill cottage. It was even more isolated and rundown than she had imagined, a decaying shell hidden amidst the overgrown trees. The air inside was cold and damp, filled with a scent of mildew and something else. Something chemical. Chloe pushed open a creaky door, revealing a dimly lit room. "Cozy, right?" she said with a chilling smirk. But April's hope quickly turned to dread. The room wasn't empty. Seated at a makeshift table, surrounded by unfamiliar equipment, were two burly, menacing-looking men. Their eyes, hard and cold, fixed on April, making her skin crawl. One of them, a scarred man with a perpetual sneer, looked up. Well, Chloe. And who's this little bird you've brought to our nest?" Chloe, no longer the sympathetic confidant, suddenly seemed smaller, subservient. "This is April. She's going to help us. She's got a lot of issues with her parents, and she wants to make a statement." The scarred man chuckled, a deep, unsettling sound. "A statement, eh? Well, we're all about making statements here, aren't we, lads?" He gestured around the room, and April finally understood. This wasn't just an abandoned cottage, it was a drug lab. And the persuasion Chloe had hinted at, the trouble that would get her parents' attention, was far more sinister than April could have ever conceived. A small, plastic bag, containing what looked like white powder, lay casually on the table. April gasped, the reality of her situation crashing down on her. She wasn't just rebelling, she had stumbled into something truly dangerous. "No," she whispered, her voice trembling. "No, I didn't. I didn't mean this." Chloe, her face now devoid of any warmth, stepped closer. "Too late, April. You wanted to make a statement? Well, congratulations. You're about to become the biggest statement Emmerdale has ever seen." Just as terror began to consume April, the faint sound of sirens could be heard in the distance, growing louder with each passing second. The police. But were they coming for her? Or was this a diversion, a twisted game orchestrated by Chloe and her dangerous associates? April's heart pounded in her chest, realizing she was no longer in control, a helpless pawn caught in a deadly web. The village was on the brink, its idyllic facade shattered by the raw, unfiltered drama unfolding within its borders. Love, betrayal, desperation, and danger converged, promising a week in Emmerdale that no one would ever forget. The Monday episode was not just a continuation, it was a cataclysm, setting the stage for an explosive future. The crisp autumn air of Emmerdale carried a new chill, not merely from the changing season but from the unresolved tensions that hung heavy over every stone cottage and winding lane. The fallout from Friday's tumultuous events had settled like a suffocating fog, leaving a lingering sense of unease and the unsettling certainty that the village was teetering on the precipice of further chaos. For some, the weekend had offered a fragile moment of reflection, a desperate attempt to pick up the shattered pieces of their lives. For others, it had only intensified their torment, pushing them closer to breaking point. The Dingle household, usually a bastion of boisterous camaraderie, was now a silent battleground. Rona and Marlon, their faces etched with a weariness that went beyond mere fatigue, stared at the empty space where April had stood, her defiant words echoing in the sudden, cavernous silence. Marlon, ever the conciliator, tried to reach for Rona, but she recoiled, her anger a raw, visible force. "How can she say such things, Marlon? How can she blame us?" she whispered, her voice a brittle whisper. "After everything we've done, everything we've been through as a family." A flash of the horrific moment Leo almost overdosed on the drugs April had carelessly left out seared through her mind, and a tremor ran through her. She nearly killed her brother, Marlon. And it's our fault? Marlon, equally devastated but trying to hold on to a sliver of hope, sighed. "She's hurting, Rona. Deeply. We know that. The grief, the pressure. It's a lot for a child." But even as he spoke the words, he knew they sounded hollow. April's accusations had struck a nerve, exposing their deepest fears. Had they, in their drive for success, inadvertently neglected the very emotional needs they swore to protect? The image of April, packed bag in hand, storming out the door, was seared into their minds, a painful reminder of how fragile their family unit had become. The thought of their precious April, out there, alone, with her history of running away, sent a fresh wave of panic through Rona. "We have to find her, Marlon. We have to bring her home." Before. Her voice trailed off, too terrified to vocalize the myriad befores that haunted her. Meanwhile, April found herself adrift, the initial surge of rebellious independence quickly replaced by a gnawing loneliness. She had sought refuge in a secluded, overgrown corner of the village, a spot she'd once frequented as a child, imagining it to be a magical, hidden kingdom. Now, it felt desolate and cold, a mirror to her own internal landscape. The harsh words exchanged with her parents replayed in her mind, each accusation a fresh stab of pain. Had she gone too far? Was she truly ungrateful? The image of Leo, small and vulnerable, flashed before her eyes, and a wave of crushing guilt washed over her. She pulled her knees to her chest, burying her face, the weight of her actions, and the profound misunderstanding she felt, pressing down on her. Just as despair threatened to consume her, a shadow fell over her. A figure emerged from the tree line, someone she recognized, someone who she thought might finally understand her plight, but whose intentions were far murkier than they appeared. The morning light filtering into Home Farm did little to brighten the mood between Gabby and Vinny. The previous night's emotionally charged confrontation had left them both raw and exposed. Vinny, desperate for forgiveness, had spent the night on the sofa, a silent vigil to his perceived failings. Gabby, however, lay awake, the weight of his confession heavy on her chest. Vinny's admission of sleeping with another man in Portugal, his struggles with his own identity, had shattered the carefully constructed illusion of their perfect marriage. As Vinny tentatively approached her in the kitchen, a freshly brewed cup of tea in hand, Gabby flinched. "Don't," she said, her voice strained. "Don't pretend like everything is okay, Vinny. It's not." Her eyes, usually full of warmth for him, were now clouded with hurt and confusion. I thought I knew you, Vinny. Every part of you. But this feels like a stranger." The betrayal stung deeply, not just the act itself, but the years of unspoken truth, the silent burden he had carried alone. "You let me believe you were attacked by Cammy," she continued, her voice rising slightly. "You let me stand by you, defend you, when all along it was something else entirely. Something you were ashamed of." Vinny's heart ached. "I was scared, Gabby. Terrified. Of losing you, of what everyone would think. It wasn't about being ashamed of you, it was about being ashamed of myself, of this confusion." He gestured vaguely, his distress palpable. "I love you, Gabby. You're my world. My man was just a way to try and make sense of things I didn't understand. I wanted to protect us, protect what we have." He reached for her hand, but she pulled it away. "Protect us by lying?" she challenged, a bitter edge to her voice. "By letting me walk into that courtroom feeling like a fool? By making me doubt everything I believed about our marriage?" The question hung heavy in the air, a chasm opening between them. Could their love, once so seemingly unshakable, bridge this newly discovered divide? The trust, once so implicit, had been irrevocably shaken. Across the village, at the local paint shop, Charity and Mackenzie's playful banter about nursery colors took on a more strained quality. Charity, usually oblivious to subtle emotional shifts in others, found herself increasingly unsettled by Mackenzie's persistent reluctance to leave the house. Every mention of a public outing, a quick trip to the pub, or even a stroll through the village, brought a barely perceptible wince to his features, a tightening around his eyes that she couldn't ignore. "Mac," she began, her voice softening, "you've been cooped up for days now. Are you sure you don't want to pop down to the Woolpack? Just for an hour, for a change of scenery?" Mackenzie forced a smile, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "Nah, babes. Honestly, I'm good. Just enjoying the quiet, you know? All this baby stuff is exhausting." He tried to deflect, turning his attention back to the paint swatches, but Charity wasn't fooled. The man she knew, the adventurous, charismatic Mac, thrived on being out and about, on the energy of people. This new, withdrawn version of him was alarming. "Mac," she pressed, her tone serious now, "I'm not an idiot. You've been wincing every time I mention going out. Is something going on? Are you struggling?" Mackenzie's jaw tightened. He knew Charity was perceptive, but he hadn't anticipated her seeing through his carefully constructed facade so quickly. He considered brushing it off, but her unwavering gaze, filled with genuine concern, made him hesitate. He'd been trying to bury the gnawing anxiety that had taken root since the traumatic events of recent months. Public places, once a source of thrill, now felt overwhelming, threatening. The fear of being seen, judged, or worse, caught off guard, had become a constant companion. He glanced around the bustling paint shop, the casual conversations, the laughter, all felt amplified, disorienting. He imagined 1,000 eyes on him, 1,000 whispers. The walls seemed to close in. "It's nothing, Charity. Just tired." But his voice lacked conviction, and Charity saw right through it. "Mackenzie Boyd," she said, stepping closer, her hand gently touching his arm. "You've been through a lot. The robbery, the accident. It's okay to not be okay. But you have to talk to me. We're a team, remember? Me, you, and our little bump." Her words, though comforting, also felt like a tightening knot in his stomach. Could he truly confide in her, or would admitting his weakness shatter the image he so desperately clung to? April, still huddled in her hidden refuge, slowly lifted her head, her tear-streaked face revealing a mixture of trepidation and curiosity. Standing over her was a figure she recognized from the village, but someone she'd rarely interacted with, a young woman with a sharp, calculating glint in her eyes, known for her rebellious streak and her questionable associations. This was Chloe Harris, someone Vinny had warned her about, but in her current state of vulnerability, April saw not danger, but a potential confidant, someone who might understand her feelings of being misunderstood and outcast. "Rough day, huh, kid?" Chloe drawled, a cigarette dangling from her fingers. She crouched down, her eyes assessing April with a disconcerting intensity. "Heard you had a bit of a row with the folks. Classic. Happens to the best of us." April, craving any shred of empathy, nodded, wiping her eyes. "They just don't get it," she sniffled. "They think everything's my fault." Chloe let out a cynical laugh. "Oh, they never do they? Parents. Always putting you in a box, telling you how to live. Think they know best, even when they're making you miserable." She took a drag from her cigarette, exhaling slowly. "You think you've got it bad. Imagine having no one to even pretend to care. At least yours are rich and successful. Mine just disappeared." April, caught off guard by the unexpected shift in Chloe's tone, felt a flicker of sympathy. Chloe, sensing her advantage, leaned in. "Look, I get it. Feeling stuck, feeling like no one listens. But there are ways to fix things. Ways to get what you want, when no one else is helping." April looked up, a glimmer of desperate hope in her eyes. "What ways?" Chloe smiled, a slow, cunning smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Let's just say, I know people. People who understand that sometimes, you gotta take matters into your own hands. You want to show your parents you're serious about leaving? You want to make them listen?" She held out a hand, not for comfort, but as an offer, a silent invitation into a world that promised freedom, but whispered of peril. April, feeling isolated and desperate, hesitated for only a moment before reaching out, unknowingly stepping onto a path far darker and more complex than she could ever imagine. The seed of rebellion, planted by her own pain, was now being watered by a dangerous ally, promising to blossom into something truly catastrophic for the Dingle family. Back at the local cafe, Mary, ever the wise and observant figure, found herself caught in a different kind of storm. After April's accusations, she felt a renewed sense of responsibility, a personal mission to mediate the escalating tensions. She believed in the power of communication, of simply listening. She knew Rona and Marlon loved April, and April, deep down, loved them. But the chasm of misunderstanding seemed to widen with every passing moment. As she cleared tables, a regular customer, an older man named Dennis, sat down, looking agitated. "Mary, I need to talk to you. It's about Vinny." Mary paused, a sense of foreboding washing over her. She knew the gossip about Vinny had already begun to circulate, but she hoped it would remain just that, village whispers. "What about him, Dennis?" she asked, her voice calm despite her growing anxiety. Dennis lowered his voice, leaning closer. I saw him, Mary. A few weeks ago, at the old mill. He was with another man. His eyes held a mixture of shock and a barely concealed hint of judgment. They were more than just friends, if you catch my drift. And then, the next day, I saw that Cammy fella, all beat up, limping around. It didn't add up then, and it certainly doesn't add up now. Mary's heart sank. The truth about Vinny's lie had been contained within the courtroom, shielded from the wider village. Until now. Dennis's words, innocent in their delivery, were like kindling thrown onto a simmering fire. The village rumor mill, once a gentle breeze, was about to become a raging inferno. Dennis, Mary said, her voice firm, I think you should keep this to yourself. Vinny and Gabby are going through a lot right now. But Dennis, fueled by his own sense of moral righteousness, shook his head. The truth always comes out, Mary. Especially in Emmerdale. People deserve to know. Mary watched him leave, a knot forming in her stomach. She knew the devastating impact this news would have, not just on Vinny and Gabby's already fragile marriage, but on their entire lives. The quiet whispers would turn into loud judgments, gossip would morph into public shaming. She felt a desperate urgency to warn them, to try and mitigate the inevitable damage. But how? And to whom should she turn for help in navigating this treacherous new landscape of public scrutiny and private heartache? The village, once a close-knit community, now felt like a tinderbox, ready to ignite with a single spark of revelation. The events of October 6th promised to be a day where secrets would unravel, allegiances would be tested, and the true resilience of Emmerdale's residents would be pushed to its absolute limits.